I've got a great guest and an amazing photograph for you. And today, we're going to talk about gesture in photography on Behind the Shot. Hi, welcome to Behind the Shot. I'm Steve Brazill. Nice of you to join us today. I've got a great guest lined up, a fantastic photo lined up for you. And I do want to remind you that the show notes for today and any links that we discuss, they are in the blog post at behindtheshot.tv. Or if you're on YouTube, all the same links and most of the same description are down below the like and subscribe button, so you can head down there and find what you need. And I want to get right into today's guest, because this was an interesting story on how this person is even here and ended up on the show. I'd like to welcome Cheryl Moore to Behind the Shot. How are you, Cheryl?
Good. Thanks, Steve. Thanks for having me.
Oh, believe me, it's my pleasure. And I say that it was an unusual way that you ended up on the show. Let's start here. You're a Colorado-based photographer specializing, let me know if I leave anything out here, but wildlife, nature, and portraits, correct?
Correct. That's correct.
Okay. So I want to tell the story of how we met. There's a guy that sent me an email just a week before we're recording this, Michael Ryno. Michael Ryno is the president of the Professional Photographers of Colorado, which is a state affiliate of Professional Photographers of America. And I'm very familiar with these. Here in California, we have PPA, PPC, Professional Photographers of California. And then we have local affiliates as well, which I'm involved with here too. So Michael sends me an email saying, look, I've got this photographer that I know. I'm the president of the Professional Photographers of Colorado. And this young lady by the name of Cheryl Moore is amazing. And this picture has all these accolades. And it was a fairly long email. And I'm going to be honest, I saw the email and I thought, okay, one of two things is happening. Either he's a PR person, because it was written so kind and nice, I thought, this guy's her PR person. Or he's just a friend trying to help, and I'm not sure which, but I kind of need to know before I go any farther. So I sent an email back to Michael saying, look, dude, this was one of the nicest emails I've ever seen. In fact, it's so kind, it reminds me of the emails I get on a regular basis that are PR people pitching their client. And I'm not saying that's a deal breaker. I just kind of want to know ahead of time, for integrity purposes, what is your reason for doing this? And it ends out Michael's just a really nice guy, right? Michael,
he sure is.
knows you, knows your work, and is like, as the president of this photo group, I want to bring attention to my members, and Cheryl is a perfect member to bring attention to. So I have to ask you, did you know he sent that email?
Well, a few months ago, he had talked to me about your podcast, and I did start watching it. And I'll be honest with you, when he first mentioned it to me, he's like, hey, what do you think about me reaching out and maybe getting you on a podcast? And I'm like, I don't think so. That was my initial response. So then I worked through that, and he mentioned it a couple more times. And actually, I'm super honored that he even thought of me in this capacity. And he's really trying to promote the members of PPC in Colorado here. And we're also both members of the Colorado Springs Guild. So another affiliate of PPA. So yeah, that's how it came about.
I think it's fascinating because as somebody who's been involved at the local level in these chapters of Professional Photographers of California, which is under PPA, it's so wonderful. And I think it's something that needs to happen more, that those people that are in these elected positions in these photo groups really, instead of just trying to promote the group or do group outings or promote the education within the group, which is a phenomenal thing, bring attention to some of the members that really deserve attention. And him doing that, I just have to say thank you to Michael for reaching out, because it's one of the reasons I love doing this show. I found a photographer whose work I really admire because of Michael's email. So I think that's wonderful. You're an active PPA member, Professional Photographers of America. And in fact, I don't know if you've got it or you're pursuing it based on what I read about you, the Master of Photography and Master Arts degrees from PPA. You're working on them now?
Both of them. Yeah, I'm pursuing both of them.
I want to ask then, For people who don't know Professional Photographers of America, and a number of the listeners and viewers are from out of the States, actually. Mm-hmm. What do the degrees from a PPA mean to you?
Hard work. A lot of hard work in the field. I'll be honest, when I started competing in PPA print competitions, I struggled with it, just trying to figure out what the judges were looking for. So I'll be starting my 4th year into my master degree venture, but I'm 1 merit short. So I'm hoping in 2023, I'll be getting my master's of photography and, with any luck at all, my artist at the same time. So we'll see how that goes.
You mentioned something interesting to me. So I do a monthly image critique show on here on Behind the Shot. It's not the normal podcast. It's only on YouTube. I do it with my friend Don Komarechka, world-renowned macro photographer, and we always have a guest person on doing it as well. And I explain to people part of my background is judging image competitions, here in California area. And what I tell people that do image competitions is, you put an image in front of me, it's entirely possible I can say to you it's an amazing image, while at the same time, that is not a good image for an image competition. Because what you just said, of I was trying to figure out what the judges wanted, which is interesting wording, I think it's an important thing for people to understand. When you submit an image to a competition, it isn't just pick your favorite image. There are specific 12 points that these images are being judged on. It's a merit system. Very interesting thing, but you are doing well in competitions. PPA 2022 Diamond Artist of the Year. Mm-hmm. 2022 PPA Gold Medal in the Photography Open. Professional Photographers of Colorado 2022 General Photographer of the Year. And related to this shot, there's 2 other ones, or at least one other one, and that is the Team USA thing, the World Photographic Cup. I'm going to save that. We'll get into that one when we get into the shot.
Okay.
But I want to ask you questions about your work, because one of the things I like to do is go through people's portfolios. I will sit on a portfolio some days and lose an hour or 2 hours easily. Mm-hmm. There's a common thread that I see in your work, and it's the word I used at the beginning of the show. Rick Sammon has mentioned it numerous times to me. It's probably the first time I ever heard the word was from Rick. He's a friend of mine. Jay Maisel has an entire book, and this term is in the title, Light, Gesture, and Color.
Read it.
There's a video I saw of Jay Maisel where he actually talked about the word gesture specifically. It was a street photo, and he said, that wall back there behind them, that wall has gesture. And I thought, wow, that's interesting. So the common thread I see in your work is gesture. Does that make sense to you from your side of the camera?
Absolutely. Always looking for gesture. And probably what he was talking about in the wall was the light, because light can certainly be gesture, whether it's an animal or people. Getting that good lighting is always key. Gesture can also be like in the famous crane shot that you haven't shown yet. There's numerous gestures in that one image. The little bears behind me here, the mom just happened to look over for a split second at her cubs, and that was just the perfect timing and showed that emotional gesture. So the bear shot, by the way, freaking amazing. Okay. When I saw that shot, gesture's the first thing that came to my mind. Now, for those of you that have not heard the term gesture before, the best explanation I found was written on a blog post. Again, I think related to Jay Maisel. It might have been a quote. I'm not sure, but it's something that separates great photographs from boring photographs. Everything can have gesture. Again, even a wall. So how do you look at... Basically, gesture is a connection between the subject matter and the photograph and the audience. Let's word it that way. Okay. So how do you look at the connection that your subjects have with the viewer, the action, the moment, the attitude,
the emotion, the stare. How do you find that?
Well, I just look for specific things that an animal is doing. And sometimes that might take an hour of waiting. It might take longer than an hour. In the instance of the bear, it literally was a split second where it looks like she's looking over her cubs. And she probably was making sure they were both there. But that shows me as the viewer that emotion attached to that image.
Which then brings me to this. Because again, that bear shot, it's got the gesture. It's got that, I don't know how to word it even. It's such an abstract term in some ways. Like I can put words to it and they tend to be the same every time and they still don't describe it to somebody who doesn't understand conceptually what it is. But it has that connection and draws the viewer in. And I would argue in your particular case, you have an eye for the moment in wildlife photography. So what is the key to capturing the moment?
Waiting until you see the moment.
Would you then suggest I'm going to word it differently. What is the hardest part then of wildlife photography and nature photography? Is it the wait? Or is it the technical side?
It is waiting. It's a lot of waiting. And I don't have a lot of patience. But I've learned throughout my photography that waiting is what matters. I mean, I have so many pictures of a bald eagle sitting on a branch. But really, there's nothing special about that, right? So I wait and wait and wait until they take that launch. And then there's the gesture of movement, the gesture of where is that eagle going, the gesture of, just the entire launch.
And I should say, go ahead. I'm sorry.
It's just what you wait for. Yeah.
Okay. So I got to say, because I mentioned at the beginning, you also do portraits. You have a portrait studio. You do high school senior portraits, which arguably are wildlife in and of themselves. But your comment about the eagle shot is interesting to me because to the person, I try and say this on the critique shows, to the person that, comes back and is like, oh my God, I got an eagle shot, right? The viewer wasn't there. They didn't know it's your first eagle shot ever. They didn't know that you hiked out there at 10 degrees. They only know that it's a bird on a branch that's doing nothing, right?
Right.
It's such a strange kind of thing to explain to people that gesture and moment and light, as you alluded to earlier, are so critical in an image. It's a strange mix to me, wildlife and nature and high school seniors. Could you explain that?
Well, so I guess I started shooting friends probably, I don't know, about 2008 or 9, somewhere back there. And then more and more friends were like, hey, take my kid's picture. And so I'm like, okay, well, maybe I can make some money, right? So I enjoyed shooting single people. So like high school senior or even, a tween. In the beginning, I shot everything and quickly found out newborns was not my thing. But even with high school seniors, you want to get that natural expression out of them, right? And so that's a gesture. You want to have the right light so that your editing process is less, right? So the flow of doing my portrait business is less time. So you get the lighting right, you get the right expressions. And so I did really enjoy doing that. And I do still enjoy doing that. But then my husband took me to Rocky Mountain National Park and I shot some elk in the rut and did not even have a wildlife lens then. I think I was using a 24-105. Still fun. So then I upgraded, my camera a little bit, got a little bit longer of a lens, and we went on an Alaskan cruise. And then I really fell in love with it. And I was done at that point. So then I started saving all my extra money for a long lens and a little bit faster shutter button. And yeah.
And so what is it right now? If I go to a scene of just you, what is that camera behind you right now?
It's a 1DX Mark II.
And what's the lens?
It's a 400 2.8. And
Wow.
I love it for early morning crane photography.
It's a great lens. I've used that for live music. It's a wonderful lens. I use the Mark II actually version. It's a wonderful lens. So
I love it.
Let's get into the shot. Before we do, I just want to remind everybody that, especially if you're watching this on YouTube, because YouTube is kind of a strange beast. People see this and it doesn't really fit the YouTube thing. This is a podcast, first and foremost. And the podcast is available wherever you can get podcasts. Wherever you get your podcasts, it's available in an audio-only feed. Or if your podcast outlet of choice supports video, it's available in video as well, like Apple Podcasts does support video. And by the way, wherever you get your podcasts, if you do like the show, please do leave a review. Same on YouTube. If you're on YouTube, head down, hit the like and subscribe, leave a review, whatever it is. It would be very much appreciated. And before we bring up the shot, one other thing I want to do really quick. My friends over at DVE Store are responsible for me having high-def video. So I want to thank them and say, visit dvestore.com for all your digital video equipment needs. And one last thing is to keep in mind that I do have workshops. I do them with Princeton Photo Workshop. I've got one coming up in April of this month, of this year. And if you're interested in that, head on over to princetonphotoworkshop.com, singular, princetonphotoworkshop.com. Find my class, and hopefully I've got something up there that you'll like and that will benefit you. And that brings us to today's image. The image we're going to talk about, Cheryl, I don't know how to put into words to you that when Michael attached this photo to an email, it literally took my breath away. This thing is amazing. What do you call this?
Dance of light.
Okay, dance of light. I think you made the comment earlier that there's gesture all over this image. Mm-hmm. Light is definitely one of the gestures in this image. So let's start with the technical and then get into the creative side.
Okay.
Based on EXIF data, this was a 1DX Mark II, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And was this that 400 2.8?
It was.
Do you know the exposure data on this?
I shot it at 2.8, 1/2000th of a second. I think my ISO was 320.
Okay. And where was this, by the way?
This was at the Monte Vista Wildlife Refuge here in Colorado.
I've got so many questions on the exposure itself. I'm going to wait to get into those. The 2.8 is intriguing to me. The 320 is intriguing to me. 2000th of a second I completely get. And phenomenal lens and body combination for this. But let's start here. For those of you on the audio feed, I'm going to describe this image. I have to stress this time. Like I do this every show, but this time I have to stress you. There's nothing that I can say to you that I can think of that will convey to you the energy, the motion, the detail, the color, the richness, the fine artness, if that's a thing, of this particular image. It is a very wide landscape orientation shot. It's not your normal 4:3. It's closer to a 16:9 almost type shot. It's the photo of a sandhill crane. The crane is centered in the frame. Like this is a perfect example of breaking the rule, dead center is deadly. Because here, dead center is symmetrical. The body is right there. The head is slightly above center line. The wings are in full spread. Imagine taking your arms and spreading them all the way out with your fingers pointing up to the sky. It literally feels like hands on the end of the wings, the feathers sticking straight up to the sky. The head is ever so slightly turned camera left, bird's right. And that's critical here, actually, because it's turned to where you can really see the bird's left eye, camera right eye, but not enough that you lose the other eye. You can actually see both eyes. Bottom third of the image is water, but the water blends seamlessly into the sky. The right foot of the bird's right, camera left, is in the water. The other foot pulled out of the water, causing a splash. And that sky behind the bird is clouds. There's some gaps here and there, but again, all blending with the same color of the bird, the water, and the sky. They all harmonize absolutely perfectly. Now, here's the thing that takes the image to just the next level. Like I'd probably score this image a 95 in a competition, if not higher. This is one of the better shots I've ever seen. A wonderful golden light coming from camera left. The bird is completely lit up with side light. It's almost directly side light. And yet, it's not a harsh side light. Like the wing on opposite side of the camera, I'd almost say Cheryl pulled a reflector out. It's this beautiful soft light on the other wing. It's the weirdest thing. It's super warm camera left, but it's cool on camera right as far as color temperature is concerned. Did I miss anything?
No, I think you hit it perfectly.
So I've got to know the story of this image. Explain to me how one gets this. What are you thinking as you're shooting this, and what do you do?
Well, so we've been going to the wildlife refuge in Monte Vista for several years now. And so over the years, we've figured out, where the light comes up and where we want to be to shoot. We know the cranes in the early morning are going to be in the water. So we found this pond, and we set up so that the side light is the main light. Obviously, sometimes it's cloudy, so we don't get any light. But on this particular day, the light did come up and hit this crane perfectly. In the early morning, they're all sleeping, kind of all in just a big old clump, right, in the water. And they, one by one, start waking up. And I don't know if you ever heard sandhill cranes, but they're very vocal. And so as soon as they start singing their songs, they start fluttering about and eventually, one by one, take off. Or if you're lucky, they all take off at once, which I've not gotten to see that very many times. But so what I'm looking for is I'm trying to single out a bird, because there's so many of them. It's pretty hard to do. Of course, when they're stomping around in the water, there's usually a thin coating of ice through the cold night. It was super cold, probably about 6 a.m. when this shot was taken. So lots of patience again. But, you just kind of see them when their wings come out. And I set my camera so that I don't jeopardize that 1/2000th of a second, because I know that's what I need to freeze those wings when they come up. And in the early morning, as you know, that only leaves 2 other settings to get the exposure right. Thankfully, I have the 2.8 lens, so that gets me a pretty wide open shot. And then I increase my ISO as little as I can, right?
So can I interject here and ask a question?
Sure.
You're saying 2/1000th of a second to freeze this, which perfect. I mean, that will definitely freeze it. Could you not like I know people who shoot professional football at 1,000th of a second. These birds are moving in such a way that really the safe spot is you've got to be closer to 2.
Yeah, I've learned that over time with blurry photos. So, I might be a little conservative there on that 1/2000th. But I definitely would rather get the shot and deal with a little bit of noise in post than to not get the shot and go again next year.
Yeah, right. So to me, I've never shot anything like this, right? And partially because you mentioned 6 a.m, which immediately says to Steve, yeah, that's probably not going to happen. If it was 6 a.m, it would be because I stayed up overnight, not because I got up early. But this image, again, this is near perfection to me, if not perfection. PPA Image Excellence Award, the PPA GIA nomination for top 10 in wildlife, the WPC, which is the World Photographic Council?
Cup. World Photographic Cup.
Oh, Cup. Okay. Yep. Top 10 in nature and Best in Nations for Team USA, first place winner of the Pro Prince Labs Wildlife Contest. And I mentioned earlier that there was that other, thing that's happening, and that is the World Photographic Cup, particular part of this question. The finals, again, top 10 final in Best of Nations Team USA, the finals have not happened yet. That's May 2nd of this year in Rome, Italy. Are you going to go?
We are not going to go, unfortunately. But we are going to maybe have a little watch party here. It will be on a Monday morning at 8 o'clock, so I'm certain all my friends will come.
Well, I wish you so much luck on this. I keep thinking about one exposure thing, though. With the 2,000th of a second, that's going to freeze the image. That leaves you aperture and ISO. You went 2.8 and 320 on the ISO. And I don't think I could have shot this at 2.8, right? For those that are listening on the audio, I can't describe to you the detail, nose to tail, as it were, in animal terms, although it's a bird. But, literally front to back, every part of the wing. There is no part of this that is soft at 2.8, 400 millimeters. How did you, in my head, having not shot this subject before, in my head, I would think I'd want to probably take the 320, bump that up to 640 maybe, and get myself at least f4. How do you maintain and capture this kind of detail at 2.8?
Well, so there is post-processing involved.
Okay.
So I do consider myself a digital artist. And so this is not actually out of camera. There is some artistic flair added to it. And mostly that was added for print competition, right? So there's a lot of dodging and burning in there to bring out the details. There's a little bit of extra feather paint, but enough to keep it photorealistic. Brightening up the dark side by opening up my shadows a little bit. Painting the background to blend in with the already foggy scene that was there. And it just works.
Yeah, it works. So, all right. I normally hit post-processing at the end, but you alluded to some of what you did here, and I've got to ask. Understand bringing up the shadows on the one side. Are you using curves for that, levels for that? Is that part of your dodging and burning process?
Both. So I probably pulled it back into Camera Raw and opened up the shadows and then just painted it in on that side. Okay. Yeah. But you can do it with levels or using the history brush for dodge and burn.
So when you dodge and burn, because some people use the dodge and burn tool in a Photoshop. Other people use, like one of my favorites is the 50% gray layer in overlay mode. Right. Do you have a preference for your dodging and burning? Because I just got to tell you, this is some good dodging and burning. Like this is most people don't do this.
Well, I use the history brush mostly for my dodge and burn. And
explain that to me. So history brush would bring back something you've changed. So you're changing something and then bringing it back,
and using the brush in either multiply mode for burn or screen mode for dodge. So it's lightening the original image, rather than adding darkness or a plain lightness, I guess. If I'm explaining that correctly.
So you take the original image, I'll throw in, maybe a Command J or something like that to duplicate the layer. You lighten or darken that layer as needed, and then use history to bring it slowly with a brush where you can change opacity to bring it back to a certain amount. Okay, I got you. Yeah. What about the color?
And it just lightens and darkens the original color to keep that tone.
So was this color there to your eye?
Yeah, most of it. obviously I increased, the vibrance, and I probably, if I remember right, painted in a little bit of the sunlight, warmed it up on the cool side of the bird on the very tips.
That's one of the strong points of this image. The super warm image left, as it fades gently to cooler on the right. It's interesting you just said you warmed it, because I imagine in my head, and correct me if I'm wrong, if it was too cool, it would be too drastic of a change across this short of an image.
Mm-hmm. I would think.
Interesting. So you're looking through a 400 millimeter lens at 2.8 on a gimbal. When you shot it, are you framing this center composition? Do you know that you're going to want that wingspan to be center composition? What are you thinking compositionally as you're looking through the lens?
Well, this one was framed center, and the original was not far from this crop. Obviously, the top and bottom came off a little bit. Honestly, when I'm shooting, I'm not thinking, ooh, I'm going to shoot this one for print comp, or, hey, I think I'll shoot this one to submit to a magazine. I just shoot because I enjoy it. And when I see, the bird's foot come up and his head turn and the light skimming across his body, the wings got that perfect flare, it just worked. And it was great timing for me and the bird.
Well, then again, leaving in camera, let's go to post, because this is a very wide, it's not panoramic, but it's a wide crop, right? It's close to 16:9, probably, maybe even a little more. But again, I mentioned that the water line, so the one leg is in the water is below the lower third. The sky starts at the lower third. The other leg is above that in the sky. Awesome. The head is slightly above center line. The top of the solid part of the wings is the top rule of third, with feathers going up, past that, right? When you're working in post and you're going to make this crop, are you thinking in those rules of center line horizontally and vertically, rule of thirds for the top of the wings with a little break to that rule of thirds to kind of free it up in your mind? And I mean, what are you thinking as you're cropping this?
I do keep the rules in mind. However, the finished crop is just based on what I think is the most appealing. And I know just from hearing previous critiques that judges want room for the bird or animal, whatever it is, to be able to move, right? So I left a little extra room on the sides, not too cropped in at the top, but it just was appealing to me. So
okay,
hoping it would be appealing to the judges.
Oh, it had to be. Oh my God, man. Okay, so then I have to ask this. Your process of finding that crop that feels right to you, right? I know people who look at an image and go, yep, this is the crop. I know other people, not mentioning any names like myself, who try 15 different crops and waste a ton of time trying 15 different crops to find the one that works for them. Is this something inherently in your brain, or is this a process of long experimentation of let's try this one, let's try this one?
Oh, I do think I tried different crops through, just to see, if anything else, which one is the most appealing.
It's just so well done. On this image, actually, let's leave this image. Just in general, what are your softwares of choice? Lightroom, Photoshop? I know you mentioned Camera Raw. What are you generally using? I
do start in Lightroom, go to Photoshop. I use Topaz Labs occasionally, Nik software.
Is there a particular Nik that you like?
No. In fact, I used to use Nik quite a bit, and then I've kind of buzzed on over to Topaz since they have the grain. What is that called? The one that
I'm not a
fixes the
Topaz
grain
user, but
denoise.
I'm listening intently. What is
The
it?
denoiser.
Oh, okay.
They've really
Topaz
increased
denoise.
that here lately. So
Yeah, actually, I do have Topaz Denoise AI, which is an amazing,
yes, that's it.
scary piece. It's actually a scary piece of software.
Yeah.
I've done denoise in different software programs and gone, okay, it looks like it's been denoise. It makes it soft. I have friends who won't use noise reduction because to them it's, it softens the image. That's what it's doing. It's blurring it. Topaz denoise is the most amazing thing that it keeps all the detail. Yeah. Do you have any when you're out in the field? Are there any apps that help you that you rely on for either weather or sun location or anything like that?
I do use Sunseeker to see what time we got to get up in the morning. I'm not a morning person either. So if I'm up early, I'm shooting wildlife or I'm sleeping. So I do use Sunseeker and AccuWeather, just whatever's on my phone.
Okay. So let me ask you a question. Last question about this image. I've been wondering this from the moment I first saw it. And I love it, but it bothers me that I would not have thought of it. Because I now that I see it, it's like, how could I should have thought of something like that on past images. The way you blended the sky down into it's not so much the water up into the sky and the clouds come down into the water and they actually cross the water line at points. Was there a reasoning in your mind that made you go, yeah, these two need to be more one?
I knew they needed to blend naturally and not have like a hard water line to where the sky meets. And then there was a little bit of fog coming off the water. So I just enhanced that quite a bit. And yeah, it just wrapped around and looked pretty natural. So
I want to go into that one comment a little deeper. Why? Why did you know how, as a better way to word it, how did you know that a hard line water line was not going to be as good for this image? Because people don't think that way. A lot of people that are, more amateur level photographers and learning, and yet that in and of itself elevates this to an entirely different level.
It's just more appealing to have the softness fade away than to have a harsh line that the eye maybe keeps going to that line rather than looking at the bird.
It works so well. Just, again, Cheryl, this image, I wish you luck at the World Photographic Cup.
Thank you.
Because this image is stunning. Just,
Thank you so
I
much.
wish I was a judge in an image competition and this came up. Because I'd get up and walk out and go, we don't need to see any other shots. We're done, right? Let's switch gears.
Okay.
Speed round. I'm going to ask you some questions. Just answer them as fast as you can.
Okay.
Right? Within reason, obviously. What is your top bird photography tip?
Fast shutter speed.
Okay. Biggest mistake you almost made or did make in doing photography?
Oh, probably not getting out enough.
Oh, good one. That's a really good one.
Can't take pictures sitting on the couch.
Favorite composition rule, if any?
The golden spiral.
Interesting choice. You're the only one that I can think of that ever said that one, which I agree with.
Okay.
Do you find yourself using it a lot?
Yeah. Especially since I've started creating more painting type images in compositing. I'll put that golden spiral on there and kind of move things around accordingly.
And for those of you using Lightroom, when you do your crop tool and it comes up with the rule of thirds, if you hit the O key, you can change the crop overlay to different overlays, one of which is the golden spiral, Fibonacci spiral. And then you can even rotate the crop overlay as well. Sure. Favorite drink?
Non-alcoholic, iced tea, alcoholic. I don't know. I have a lot of them. Bloody Mary.
Bloody Mary. Okay. Favorite album or song or artist?
Bob Seger, Turn the Page.
Wow. So I lived in Detroit for 3 years, and when I used to drive from California to Detroit, obviously Bob Seger, Detroit, I used to listen to that there and back all the time. Is there any photographer that you know of, well-known, not well-known, doesn't matter, alive, not with us any longer? Is there a photographer you think needs more attention that more people should follow?
I do. There's a 22-year-old gentleman out of Jackson, Wyoming. His name is Isaac Spots.
Okay.
Fantastic photographer. Great personality. We met him. He actually works in the Wyoming Camera Outfitter store. I think I don't know, might have left home without a memory card or something and had to go get
Wait
an
a minute.
extra
Whoa. Okay. Okay. So other people are not the only ones. You left home with no memory card in your camera and had to go buy one on the fly.
Yeah, well,
and that wasn't your answer. That wasn't your answer to the question of the biggest mistake.
Oh, I forgot about it. So I probably didn't have any, but I probably maybe filled them up or something like that. I don't know. Anyway, we find ourselves in this camera store, and there's this amazing wildlife all over the walls in there. And there's this. At the time, he was 20, I think, when we first met him, and I follow him on Instagram, and he does the greatest stories. He's so entertaining. You should have him on your show. He would be fantastic.
I will put a link to Isaac. What was it? Spots?
Isaac Spots.
Okay. I will put a link to Isaac's Instagram or website, whichever I find, in the show notes at behindtheshot.tv. So again, everybody head over to behindtheshot.tv, scroll down. I will have links to Cheryl's photographer pick, apps that she mentioned. And of course, I will have Cheryl's links as well, which we need to do really quick. So you have a number of different websites, and social media wise, it's kind of different on each platform. Those of you watching video, they have been popping up as lower thirds under Cheryl. But again, in the show notes at behindtheshot.tv or on YouTube down below the like button, head down there and you'll find all of Cheryl's links there too. But let's run through them. Websites?
CherylMoorePortraitStudio.com and cmoreimages.com, which that's CMOORE.
Okay. Yeah.
Images.com.
That's true. I never thought about that. People could misunderstand that. And then Facebook?
Same, Cheryl Moore Portrait Studio. And then I have a Facebook group, Cheryl Moore Images of Nature.
And Instagram?
Same.
Okay. Cheryl_Moore_Nature_Images on Instagram. Go follow. And seriously, again to Michael. Let me just say this to Michael. I don't know if Michael's going to watch this video, but let me just say to Michael, dude, thank you. Because recommending Cheryl to me introduced me to a world of photography that I will forever be grateful for. So to Michael Ryno, thank you so very, very much for recommending her. Anything that you've got coming up people need to know about other than May 2nd and the championship, hopefully in Italy?
No, that's about it. I too would like to thank Michael Ryno, Michael Ryno, for his support. It's been so encouraging to me as a photographer, and the rest of the PPC members, I think. I also have to put a little plug in for my husband. He's a biologist by education, so he's the original birder and who got me kind of interested in birds to begin with. And then, he's my navigator, finding the animals for me. And he's my biggest fan for sure.
Does your husband have an Instagram?
He does not.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was going to say, we can give him a plug and get some people following him too. So with that, Cheryl, thank you so much for doing this. It is so very much appreciated.
I appreciate you so much for having me on, Steve. It's been a great time.
Believe me, the pleasure is all mine. Everybody make sure you head over to the website. It's behindtheshot.tv. Head down, find the blog post for this particular episode. All the show notes are there. Something I wrote about Cheryl is there too. Any links that we mentioned will be there. If you're on YouTube, head down below the like and subscribe button. Click them on the way down. Links are down there, but I don't have the full blog post there. For that, you do need to go to the website, which is behindtheshot.tv. To everybody, thanks so much for watching. Thanks for all the support. Make sure you join us next time as we take a look inside the mind of a great photographer by taking a closer look behind one of their shots. I'm Steve Brazill. We'll see you on the next show.